Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
We're live? We're alive? We live!
What?
Wait.
All right, introduce yourself. Everybody introduce yourselves.
All right,
Starting with-
hi, I'm Bella. Me, right?
Yep.
All right, I'm Bella.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hi, I'm Gavin.
Hi, I'm Lily.
Hi, I'm Shelby.
I'm Jillian. Sorry, my mic was muted.
Hi, I'm Lolo.
And I'm Arthur, and this is the Brady Bunch. No, just kidding. This is Youth on Subjects of the World. And today we're going to talk about fandom culture. Fandom culture is an interesting thing, and there's a lot of things you can really talk about fandom culture. But first, I'd sort of like to go and hear about everyone's, because there's a lot of different fandoms you can really like identify with, and you don't necessarily have to be a part of one fandom, and the levels of it that you can be a part of are like varied. So I'm interested to know what fandoms people super identify with, what fandoms people really feel they're a part of. Does anyone feel kind of moved by that question to start?
Yeah. Can I go first?
Sure.
Okay, so this was my topic idea, and I wasn't going to go on first, but I thought I should because my recent fandom obsession is a podcast, actually. It's called The Adventure Zone, and it's a D&D podcast. And yeah, I feel attached to it because it has good writing and a lot of LGBTQ characters. Somebody else go now.
I'm involved in I have a page or like an Instagram where I post like video edits for like different types of fandoms. And so I'm involved in many different types of fandoms, but the only thing I don't get involved with the because there's like half of Instagram is an anime fandom because half of the people are obsessed with like anime and they're all in that anime fandom, but I don't make edits of anime because for one, I don't really watch it and it will go insane because everybody's obsessed with anime pretty much.
Pretty much.
That's, yep. I guess I'll go. I identify with a lot of fandoms and particularly a lot of different media in the fandoms. So for one, I've always considered myself a part of the Harry Potter fandom, but I also really love anime. And D. Gray Man was kind of my first fandom. And so even though it's not super huge, I always identify really heavily with that one.
Yeah, I that's kind of where I'm at as well. I'm in several different fandoms, not just one, but definitely the D. Gray Man fandom. It's not a very big fandom, but that's where I identify myself in that group.
I identify with the Walking Dead fandom a lot because not only could it happen in the future with what are like the way the world is going now, but just because they're writing it so well and it's based off of a comic. It's pretty cool.
I guess I'll go. For me, I'm more of like YouTube fandoms. I personally write like stories that I will post on Wattpad, but I don't like post pictures on Instagrams or whatnot, but like I'm like in that definitely for YouTube.
All right. So before I talk about my fandom, I'm going to point out we have a lot of new members this episode. So I just want to let everyone know, like, just be confident and jump in whenever you feel comfortable. And you guys are already doing a really great job. And when it comes to me and fandoms, never been like a huge like fandom goer or whatever, where I get really into the fandom. Like I read fanfics and stuff. I never have done that kind of thing. But, you know, I watch Doctor Who and Supernatural and that stuff. So, and I follow some blogs relating to that. So I guess you can say that's my, interaction with the fandom. But yeah, that's my relationship with those fandoms. Kind of. Okay.
So you two were talking about D. Gray Man. I've never heard of that. And do you want to talk a little bit about what that is and how you interact with that fandom?
Well, I've always considered it a bit of a cult classic. It's not super old though, like Inuyasha or some of the other ones, but it never gained a huge amount of popularity, but it's still really fantastic. It's a bit in the spirit of Black Butler, but with a little more action.
It definitely has that dark
it's kind
theme.
of Victorian and pretty dark and fun stuff. It's a little bit more I'd say fantasy than Black Butler and a lot of other Victorian dramas.
So it's a fantasy anime action?
Yeah.
Cool.
It also takes a lot of like, a religious aspect, but it takes it in a story where it doesn't really seem very religious until, you actually like really stare into it like, wait.
I still haven't figured out if the Catholic Church are the bad guys or not. They're like good guys, but I don't like Rubelier, so no.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to say which fandom they're in but hasn't got a chance yet?
I think fandoms are hard for me because there's a lot of things that I really enjoy, but not a lot of things I feel like I'm the fandom about. I guess one thing would be the Rooster Teeth, which is a production company that makes YouTube videos in Austin, and they make a lot of stuff that I really enjoy and like actively watch and sometimes talk about with people and like buy their t-shirts and stuff like that. A sort of another interesting question is, are fandoms only of things that are fiction? Like, can you only be in a fandom of like a TV show or a movie? Because if you can, I'd say a fandom I'm definitely part of are the like tall ship fandom. Like I have a painting in the back, I don't know if you can see that, of a old century galleon, I believe, and I work on tall ships and I really enjoy like talking about it and the same kind of nerd fandom talk that you would about any TV show. I really like talking about old style ships, that are sailing ships. So that would be a fandom I'm a part of.
That's actually a really interesting question. Because there's a lot of things like that, and people aren't usually regarded as being in a fandom, but it's kind of the same thing. And it's interesting because a lot of celebrities have fandoms. I'm not really in any of them, so I don't know all the details. But it seems like a lot of them have followings, so I don't see why nonfiction things can have a following. I mean,
I'd say, sorry for interrupting. I'd say that YouTube is kind of a nonfiction fandom kind of thing. It's like especially with vlogs and stuff. I'm not really into vlogs, but I think that counts. And I think I've watched a lot of videos for like people who make like steampunk parts for like cosplay, but it's like not from any fandom, but it's like kind of steampunk fandom kind of. So yeah. I think it's
I
fandom.
definitely know what you're talking about. There's a con that's a sister con to Fanime that we often stay at the hotel when I go, usually with Danny and sometimes Matt, to Fanime Con every year. And I think it's Clockwork Alchemy. So it's really cool to see both the anime cosplayers and all the steampunk fans kind of coexisting. It's pretty cool.
Do you mind if I say something real quick? The main fandom that I know a lot of people are in is the 21 Pilots fandom. Like, so that's one fandom that's mostly non-fiction because it's real people, but like everyone I know is involved in the 21 Pilots fandom.
Yep.
I think one of the most interesting kind of real-world fandoms there is sports. I think people like to make that kind of distinction between like jocks and nerds as being very different people, even though people who are super into sports, like I've seen like even like lists of how we're similar. Like when people wear like jerseys of their favorite football player, that's a cosplay. You're not wearing a jersey, you're wearing their jersey. You're pretending you're them. And that's totally cosplay. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's what you're doing. And like fantasy football and like there's a list of just a lot of things where you start to realize like football, like being interested in football makes you a part of that fandom. And there's a lot of similarities in how people approach that fandom to Black Butler, to football.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's nice to know that in the end, they're just as trashy as we are.
I mean, I never would have considered sports fans to be a fandom. But yeah, I mean, but that really does beg the question, what's, like, where's the line? Like, what's the difference between just a group of people who are into something and a fandom? Because when you hear fandom, you mostly associate it with people who watch Doctor Who or their favorite show or book or movie, or, etc. Not sports fans. So, where is the line?
May I say something? Me and my mom were actually talking about this as she was preparing me for this. She was like, "What does fandom mean?" And we theorized that maybe it's fan domain, like it's just a shorter word of it.
I think it stands for, I think the Dom from fandom actually stands from the Dom from Kingdom, which is interesting. Domain, Kingdom, kind of similar. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I thought it was. So it's
probably
anyway.
Like it's a fan base. So it's a big grouping of people who are fans of anything, really.
Well, there are people who are like fans of stuff and they'll go to like concerts, and then there are people that make like video edits of like there are people that will like go to like a 21 Pilots concert. They'll go to a 21 Pilots concert, but then you can either be like a fan of that, or you can be involved in like the fandom and be like you could like I don't know, use their hashtag or something, but I don't know. You could.
Yeah, I feel like that's more talking about like the varying degrees of participation within a fandom. Like there are the people who watch the show, and then there are the people who, like you said, like will make video edits and then like read and or write fan fiction and observe art and stuff like that. So um, yeah. So
I
how
think,
do okay, you start.
yeah, I was just gonna say that I think the distinction is kind of something uh, to kind of placate people and to stereotype people. I think we don't think of sports fans as being in a fandom because that word, while the definition of it is very general, kind of society has put a very narrow view of that because in a lot of ways society just kind of puts down people who genuinely and passionately care about things. So if you genuinely and passionately care about anime, you are a dweeb in a fandom. And if you genuinely passionately care about sports, you are a jock. You're a dumb jock. And there's lots of different ways we just kind of put down people. And we also want to separate them because if the jocks and the fandom dweebs ever get together, they'll be like, wait a minute, this is dumb, and revolt against the melancholy society.
Well, and I think also that it's a bit of what our society just puts above other things. So for instance, a lot of fandoms are like books and TV. And generally, I think we look down on that sort of thing. Also why I think fictitious things are also mostly considered fandoms, whereas nonfiction things are not, is because it's like, oh, this is real, so somehow it's more important than this anime. Even if the anime has a lot of really interesting themes that might be actually deeper than a football game.
The thing that society does is it will make people who, like, if you like sports but you like Harry Potter, they'll, most of the time when people see, like, people that like sports, they think they're a jock. When they see people that like Harry Potter and stuff like that, they classify them as a nerd. But when you're someone like me and you're in between, you're not a jock and you're not a nerd. You're just a person.
But we can't have people. Everyone has to fit in a box.
Oh my God. How could you be a person?
Being restricted, God.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I actually found an interesting thing that happened to me a long time ago when the My Little Pony fandom first started up. When the show first came out, like everyone was talking about it, and there was definitely a very negative view on people who watched the show. And I eventually got to watch some of the show, and I watched 2 seasons of it and thought it was pretty good, but not I wasn't obsessed with it. I didn't watch the next season. It was like, this is an okay show. But whenever I started talking about it, people would be like, oh, so you're a brony, which is the name for people in that fandom. And I didn't really identify with that fandom the same, and I found it interesting, the same way, I've watched 4 or 5 Star Trek films, but I'm not a Trekkie. I don't identify with that fandom, but I was still kind of pushed into that box of, oh, you like this fandom. And then on top of that, there was kind of a negative connotation of that, of you like this show, so I'm presuming things about you, who you are, and I assume very negative things. And I find that interesting that just by not even saying that I'm a fan of the show, but just talking about a show, people begin to presume things about you and kind of put you in that box.
I think that's really true. And the sad part is that even within fandoms, there's some discrimination. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that I certainly have this, and I'm pretty sure some other people do. There's a negative connotation for especially the Twilight fandom. If you hear somebody saying they really love Twilight, if you're not really into that, and I flat out did not like it, I sort of get a negative connotation from people that really are into that. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it happens. And I just find it interesting that, even people that are in fandom still don't always have understanding, and we're not always kind to each other.
For the thing that I love Twilight. Like, as soon as you said Twilight, I was like, okay, I need to elaborate. And
Okay.
the thing that always happens to me is, since it's so old, people will call it, like, people will be negative towards me because I like it. But it's like me with Harry Potter. People are negative to me about Harry Potter, which doesn't even make any sense, in my opinion. And people are negative to me about Twilight, which I can see. But I just don't get it why they can't respect that people have opinions, and not everybody has to like the exact same thing.
Wait, who is negative to you about Harry Potter? That's one of the most genuinely loved books in the world.
Sorry for interrupting. There's a way to be negative about someone not liking Harry Potter, and I get that one a lot because I don't personally watch Harry Potter or read the books, and I don't plan on it. I'm not really interested in it. And people, yeah, I break a lot of people's hearts saying that.
just rip them out.
Yeah. So I get a lot of it because people are like, why don't you read it? I'm like, not really interested. And then they scoff at me and walk away. And so I can understand how someone would be negative.
Yeah, I recently had an experience where I had a friend who was my friend for a while, and then I found out that she didn't really like Harry Potter, and I had a moment of like, no! And then I was like, wait, I still like you as a person. Huh. It doesn't really matter at the end of things.
Yeah.
I thought you were being discriminated against for liking Harry Potter, and I was just trying to understand what people's sort of excuses for that was. But yeah, not liking something is just as dumb a thing to complain to someone about. I mean, like, there's only a finite amount of fiction in the world, or there's a finite amount of time to watch fiction in the world, and if you want to spend time watching this or reading that instead of the thing that everyone else wants to, I really don't see a problem with that.
See, people will come up to me and they'll call me a nerd because I like Harry Potter, and I'm fine with that. But then I tell people I like Harry Potter because I tell some close friends I like Harry Potter. I mean, I tell everybody I like Harry Potter that asks, at least. But the only thing that happens to me a lot is, well, they'll call me a nerd, which of course I expected, but then they'll just flat out stand there, well, the people I know at least, and just make fun of every single detail about Harry Potter, from the first thing that happens in Harry Potter to the last thing that happens in the last movie of Harry Potter.
Those sound like hipsters to me.
They're
really do.
No accounting for tastes there.
Yeah, they just want to dislike something that's popular. I don't care for Harry Potter much either, but I understand why people like it. I watched all the movies. It's interesting. Who doesn't like wizards?
I mean, another thing I was obsessed with when I was, one fandom I'm a part of is, I know a lot of people get mad because it really upsets some people, but I make edits all the time of 13 Reasons Why. I don't know. I'm just, people get so mad because they say, why do you watch that show? That show's just for people that are just depressed, and why that show's just gonna make you go insane and everything bad. And I like the show, and it doesn't affect me when other people say bad stuff about it. I just don't get it why people, my grandma says every time, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And honestly, to people in opposite fandoms, that's honestly really true.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of fandoms will get a lot of hate towards them, but it's several of them. So let's say you like one and someone else likes the other, like Harry Potter and Walking Dead, and you're both going at each other. In the end, all of them kind of get insulted in the sense if you like this and the other person doesn't, it becomes a war kind of. Like a lot of people are trying to prove, I feel like, that a fandom is better than the other. Like some
That's
Yeah.
certain things.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that it's like fandoms are often kind of discriminated against by like normies or whatever, but then we discriminate against each other too. It's a vicious cycle.
Oh yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
You think
Sorry.
of all the people we learn to get along, but
Yeah,
Never.
and another thing, discrimination like in fandoms is like a huge thing. Like the same fandom like hating other fans because like they got in too late, or like their favorite character is like the bad guy or something. Like I see a lot of stuff like that as
shipping
well.
wars.
Yeah.
Shipping
Yeah,
wars
shipping
all the way.
wars.
Oh, the shipping wars.
Like I must admit that I'm somewhat guilty of that sometimes. You know, I see like a no TP and I'm like, scroll down on the feed, can't even look at it.
Yeah, I think we've all had times where we kind of, I've definitely in my past, and I try to stop doing it as much, of just like that kind of snarky, oh, you like this, or oh my God, you haven't seen this kind of mentality. And I actually kind of understand, I don't agree with, but I understand people who are in fandoms that get discriminate against other fandoms, because when you get put down like that, you want to kind of take back your power. And if you don't have a good solid base, the way you take that back is by like attacking other people. It's the reason we have bullies, is because they've been attacked and they want to attack other people. So like that person who was making fun of Harry Potter for like so long, it sounds like they seem to know a lot about Harry Potter. And it seemed like they were just angry, maybe because someone made fun of them liking Harry Potter, or maybe someone making fun of them liking something else. And they just kind of wanted to get that anger out, and the only way they could get it out is by yelling at someone else about it, which is a shame, because there's much better ways to deal with people than to just yell at them because they don't like your favorite show.
personally, I didn't mean to cut somebody off if I did. Personally, I like a lot of villains in movies. Like Maleficent is my like favorite part of any Disney movie. I like a lot of like from Until Dawn. I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but my favorite character is Josh from Until Dawn, and he's the bad guy. And I honestly, I like him as a character, and I get hated on for so much for liking the bad guys and stuff.
I feel your pain on a deep and spiritual level.
Yeah, like the villains are characters too, man. They should be liked in some way. Like they were written to be this way.
Yeah, like when they came out with Suicide Squad for like DC, because I know there's like a whole thing for that too. But like I was so excited because the villains are my favorite from DC, because they have such better stories. Like in my opinion, they have better stories. So like when people are like, "Oh, why do you like the villains and stuff?" I'm like, "Well, they like not everybody has to like the heroes. Like there's." And that's like what I think is a lot of people defend fandoms. Like when you're in one, you are defending it as if it's like your child kind of. A lot of people will get really angry and like call you out, like it's like how you're saying before, like you join late into a fandom and like pretend to be super like into it, or like you are into it, but apparently to others not enough. Like I know I said I really liked Harry Potter, but I've like only seen the movies. I hadn't read the books yet. And someone was like, "You're not a real fan unless you've read the books." I'm like, that's not necessarily true. You can watch the movies and not read the books, or the other way around, and like still be a fan, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say about Batman, considering Batman is like the least interesting character in any of his comics, because Batman's villains are made to be reflections of him. And I think tons of them are the most interesting characters in his comics, especially like Batman villains are especially interesting and people sympathize with and are interested.
Yeah, like there's so much stuff you can do with villains that you can't do with heroes.
See, there's personally the thing where people say that like anything about something. Like everybody, like a lot of people that watched Suicide Squad said, "Oh my goodness, I love Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad." And what I always think is you like Margot Robbie. You don't like I mean, unless you read I read the comics, so I know specifically I like Harley Quinn, but people that just after seeing the movie just said, "Oh, I like Harley Quinn." You specifically like the girl who portrayed her and how she portrayed her, but when you read the comics, it's a different kind of like to the character.
True.
Well, yeah, they're fans of that version of Harley, though.
But I would argue that, I mean, you can be a fan of any version you want.
Yeah, I personally didn't like Suicide Squad very much as a movie, but I thought Margot Robbie's performance of the of Harley Quinn was very good, and I did like that character very much. And this is coming from someone who's read comics with Harley Quinn and watched the original Batman the Animated Series where she first aired. But I think that portrayal of the character was different than other versions, but definitely a solid version. That I think you can like a character without necessarily liking the actress. Like Margot Robbie's done other stuff, and I liked her in that, but she was definitely very different and definitely like more the character, I think, in this. Like you could say that I'm not a fan of Harley Quinn. I'm a fan of the actress who played her in the Batman the Animated Series, which I sadly don't know offhand.
I'm honestly, I watch AFMAL, and I'm one of another half big fandom that I know is, the AFMAL fandom, which specifically a lot of people don't know, but everybody will hate on each other saying, "You like this ship, that's not okay. You like that ship, that's not okay. This person's better than this person." Well, yep, she said it. That person's better than that person. And everybody just will argue with each other, even though they're in the same fandom. They're just hating on each other for no specific reason.
The struggle is real.
That really goes back to the ship wars, where people are like, "Oh no, this ship is better than this ship." This happens a lot in the Walking Dead fandom, because I know it does. I don't personally see it, but I know it does with the crazy people out there with the ship wars. Is the Rashone ship, which is the main guy, Rick, and one of the cool chicks, Michonne. They're a couple in the Walking Dead series, even though I'm really sad it's ending next season. At the end of season 8, it's ending. What?
Wait, people complain about that ship? I mean, it's literally a show. It's canon.
It's
yeah.
Surprised how much people complain about canon.
It's kind of
crazy. I understand that, though. Sometimes canon sucks. I don't watch The Walking Dead, but I've seen a lot of things where, like, there's, like, a forced straight relationship, and it's just, like, the girl was in it for one scene, and then they made out in the next scene kind of thing. I understand that.
That happens a lot in The Walking Dead.
Wait, come on, guys. Okay. Come on.
Yeah, come on. It's about zombies. Let's get back to zombies, please.
So I have a little note down here. They would like to hear a little bit more about shipping. So let's talk about, like, what is shipping? Like, explain to people who might not know, like, what's shipping and, about how it happens in the fandom and stuff. So
glad you asked.
I'm here to explain because I had to explain this to my mom. Ready? Right. Here's how I explained it. Shipping is a shortened version of warship, which means you worship that couple.
Oh, I thought it was relationship.
Yeah. It's either relationship or it's warship. My mom Googled it, and it was the Google definition was warship.
I disagree with Google.
You worship that relationship, so it's ship.
I mostly took it as you pair these two people together in maybe a romantic way, or, you know, like in a more, you could also make it like these people should be friends kind of a thing, which is
Oh yeah, bro TP.
yeah,
And then OTP is one true pair. And how you know you have an OTP is when you're watching or reading something, you're like, them, they should get married right now. Just put up the altar. Let's get a priest or a captain or something in here.
Yeah.
Like a ship, I love Pretty Little Liars, so I love this ship called Emerson, which is Emily and Allison and those, like, honestly, I ship those, and that's my OTP. But people all the time ask me, what's a ship? And, like, saying, well, that's not canon. That can't be canon. And I said, well, if you did see it, you would know it's canon anyway. And, well, like, shipping, it technically means you think those two would be good together. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really about the canon. I don't understand people who criticize someone for a ship by saying it's not canon. The whole point of a ship is you really like this relationship and you personally think that these two characters would go well together. So it being not canon doesn't really matter.
I have a pun for this.
Can I talk about fandom canon for a second? Because I have opinions about this. The TV show The Flash has Barry with Iris, who's his longtime will they won't they friend who he grew up as a kid and also stayed in the same house with, and also like they have this, his adopted dad is also her dad, and like that's a little weird in the beginning, but also he used to have this partner on the force who also like they were together for a while named Patty, and she's like amazing and perfect for him, and just like they ended it because like the destiny relationship had to happen. And I really think like they were way better fit and the Flash should have been with Patty, and that is my opinion. And that is the, I don't want to say truth because I don't, but I really think that.
Yeah, there's really, well, someone was asking what canon meant. It was like, it just means what is true in the universe of the show, and then non-canon is what isn't true, but is usually like what the fandoms think or what the fandoms would like to think.
Side note,
sometimes that's
like
called headcanon.
Yep, I was about to say the exact same thing.
Oh. Okay, so I have a pun for relationships and canon. I love nautical puns with fandom. So why do they call it canon? Because it's there to destroy ships. That's my pun. That's
good.
And if one of them's dead, it's a ghost ship.
Yes. Speaking of like ships, I know one thing with shipping, like especially in YouTube communities, I know I'm part of a fandom for Dan and Phil, but like there's a huge ship between the two of them, and I remember hearing about that they used to actually like comment in their comments they would say like we really don't appreciate the shipping when it first began, because like a lot of people didn't I know when like shipping starts for new YouTubers, they're like they don't understand it and they don't think it's a positive thing. So like I noticed that with shipping it can be really negative on some people. I'm like, I get it, so I don't openly ship them, but like if it were to happen, like yeah, but I'm not gonna like advertise like they should be together. Oh my god, I'm not gonna do that on like social media.
Yeah, there's this, it's like they're real people and most of their fans are girls, so I feel like it's mostly like this weird like fetishization of gay men kind of thing. So like
it's now when we talk about yaoi.
Yeah. Oh god.
Danny, you're up.
But no, that's actually a very interesting thing, because when you start getting over to like real people, it gets a little weird, because those are real people and they have feelings. So kind of like shipping two fictional characters is fine because they don't have any opinions and you can write out them whatever you want. But with real people, like it's basically the equivalent of all your friends saying that, oh, you should really get with that girl. It's like, no, we're just friends. We don't like each other that way. And everyone's like, no, you should totally like her. It's like, it's a little uncomfortable. And I think that is sort of a moment where I agree with you. I think like you can have your opinion in your head, but when people kind of force it upon them, it does get a little weird.
Oh wait.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, I completely understand with like how people feel about that, because I've had friends say like, "Oh, you should go out with this person." I'm like, no. Like, I know my parents had made jokes about one of my friends, like, and we're both in relationships, like separate relationships, and my parents had made jokes like, "Are you sure he doesn't like you?" and stuff like that. I'm like, no, because they like him as a person, and it's like one of those things where it's like, I just don't like the idea of putting people together who are actual people. Like, if they're real people, like you said, they have emotions. And, like, if you advertise that you think they should be together, a lot of the times they'll take it negatively and not want people to think that way. So,
People have emotions?
So Willow, what do you
Oh,
think
no.
about the difference between shipping fictional characters versus real people? Willow?
With fictional characters, I do agree that it's against like feelings. My mic working? Okay. It is the difference between feelings and in relationships and all that. And I'm not really that big of a shipper, so I don't have strong feelings about shipping.
Yeah, it's kind of implicitly agreed upon within fandoms, and I've heard this from many different people. You shouldn't ship real life people because of what we've already talked about. They're real people. If they don't want to be in a relationship, I'm sure the last thing they want to hear from a ton of people is, "Oh, you guys should get together. You guys should get together." Like, especially in this situation. So you have two, I believe, straight dudes being told to get into a relationship, and that's kind of, that's not great. It's just something that should be done in general.
It's kind of where you like kind of draw the line between shipping. I've always been pretty good about that. Like there's these points where, they like these people were in a relationship and, I thought they were cute together and, I would give them my opinion, but I'm not the kind of person to push that. Like, yeah, you two get together. You're cute kind of a thing. But I mostly keep towards my fictional characters, and it when it comes to fictional characters, I guess it's kind of spirals out of control for me.
yeah, I agree with like that on the sense that keeping it private is a really good thing. Like, I don't think you shouldn't not ship people. Like, if you do it privately where you think like, oh, I wish they'd get together, like, that's okay. Because it's your personal thought. But like, I've seen a lot of people advertise, like, and Dan and Phil, they're roommates. So they live together in an apartment and they're always making videos together. So a lot of people like to look for details within their videos to point out like, oh, they're together in a relationship and stuff like that. So they'll basically like, it's like really hard for them because it's always something with the roommates.
And another thing, like what if one of them was like gay or bi? Then like how much harder would it make for them to like come out because they'd have all this pressure, and like only one is, then it's even worse because like it would create so much tension.
Yeah. I honestly
Go.
Honestly, I ship, like, it's different if you ship people that are already together. Like, if you think, like, if they're together and you think that's cute, like, I don't know why, but for some reason, some people, even though they're together, get hated on for shipping Liza and David Dobrik, which, Liza and David, but honestly, they're together, so you can ship them without getting any hate, because it's not like they're like one doesn't like they're not together or something. It's not like they're like just friends or something, and not like it's not like they're friends and like David's gay or something like that, because that would be different, because that would mean that it'd be different because they're just friends. You can't. It's different to ship people that are together and are not.
Yeah, it's like when people are together and you're like really like their relationship, it's less of shipping and more like enjoying their and I don't know. I'm trying
Enjoying
not to make it sound
joy.
creepy. But yeah, and just happy. I don't know. Just enjoy seeing them happy together.
Okay, so I have a random question. Does anyone have like fandoms that they're kind of ashamed to be in?
I used to be in the Homestuck fandom, so like that's
Oh
the
my
biggest.
Me.
That's the
It's like those fandoms that you kind of keep in your pocket and in your Tumblr, so none of your
Yeah.
friends really know about it, but deep down you love it, and you're like, no, don't judge me.
That's kind of me with anime as well. I don't watch it very often, but there's some that are like deep in my heart still.
That's
And
how
also
I am
cartoon.
That's how I am with anime. Willow got me hooked on anime. So I have like 3 animes that I watch, and only she knows I watch them.
Honestly, I'm a big part of the Friends fandom. And I know it's an old show, so there's not many, but I just, like, a few of my friends just have their own little fandom, like the Friends TV show fandom.
Sharing a fandom with friends is awesome, always, most of the time, unless you like have different headcanons, but yeah.
Oh,
Well,
another
oh, sorry.
I don't think I have a fandom I'm embarrassed about. I try not to have things that I like and care about that I'm ashamed of. Like if I like and care about something, I'm proud of it and I will talk about it. And if people, it's the same thing of like the only reason I'd be ashamed of it is the fear of people putting me down for that. And if people are, then that's them and their fault. Yeah, and yeah, it's the same thing as like with shipping. Is that like if you're shipping to real people in your head, that's fine. I think there's an old saying of nothing is wrong in your imagination, and I like that quote.
Mm. So speaking of fandoms, ashamed to be in. Well, I'm not in this fandom anymore, but I used to be in the Brony fandom, like in it. But I was like 12, so I don't know how much it really counts. But I used to be really ashamed of being in that because there was a lot of negativity surrounding that fandom.
Yeah, I was in that fandom as well.
Yeah, and looking
Sorry.
back, that's cool. I understand it because on the surface it does seem very strange. Even looking back and looking at some of the pictures of the people that were in it, it is a really odd concept because you see these pictures of these like 28-year-old men at a con with ponies and like they have like Rainbow Dash on their arm or something.
Yeah, that's I think that's cool when they're just doing that, but there's also it's a kids show and there's a lot of porn of it. So like
there is a lot.
That's another thing.
Yeah. So I mean there's not much else to say about it. And well the whole porn subject on that is kind of it's an interesting discussion because on one hand, you can say to the bronies, like, you shouldn't be making that because that's weird and that's wrong. And like, but I believe there is some responsibility on parents to control their kids' computers and turn on safe search and stuff. So, but that's a whole nother discussion. I'm not going to go into that. So yeah, that's my brony history.
Okay.
Yeah. But go ahead.
I just I saw in that somebody asked what are your favorite ships, and honestly, my favorite ship out of anything is gonna have to be Beth and Daryl from The Walking Dead, or Glenn and Maggie from The Walking Dead. Yeah, okay. That's all.
That one touched my heart. My favorite ship has got to be the Hamilton ship of Alexander Hamilton and John Lawrence.
That's an amazing ship. To talk about what we were just talking about the Brony fandom, I do think there's a trouble in kind of age gating or gender gating a certain fandom, because like the same way we say men can't like My Little Pony is the same way we say girls can't like Transformers or something. I think there's definitely like a responsibility of, I get what you're saying about like how to act in that fandom when it is a show made for kids, and just to be aware of the people around you. But I do also think that we shouldn't like shame anyone for liking a show because it's not in their age range. The same way I would never say to someone who's like 12 that they shouldn't be watching Game of Thrones because it's an adult show. It's like, do you want to watch Game of Thrones? Watch Game of Thrones.
Okay, as someone
I didn't
who's
mean
a
to
fan of
age
Game
or
of
gender shame.
Thrones, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess if they're a very mature 12-year-old, I guess. I was just watching it last night. There was like dead bodies hanging from the bow of a ship. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Please, don't spoil
I think
anything.
it's. I'm sorry.
Full frontal
It definitely
nudity.
has to be watched with some parental vision. And
Yeah, I think
my
with,
mom
yeah.
and her friends are trying to get me to watch it as a 13-year-old. I'm like, no. I watched one episode and I had to cover my eyes more than twice.
You have to be okay with vivid gore, body horror, and lots of full frontal nudity in both genders.
Yeah.
I'm good with horror and gore, but anything else past that, no, thank you.
Because horror and gore is like there's a lot of horror and gore in The Walking Dead, and there's not even really partial nudity, and I mean there's a
No.
little bit. The whole Rick and Michonne scene was a bit iffy, but there was no partial nudity really, or nudity.
Yeah.
The whole idea of like parental guidance with like Game of Thrones, like I want to watch it. I know my stepdad has watched it and like my mom has watched it, but for me, my dad always said like if you can handle it, like I know you won't take it seriously or you won't like look stuff up or repeat things, like then I trust you to watch things. So like I could watch like stuff like that when I was a lot younger. Because like I'm 17 now and I was watching stuff when I was like 12 that like a lot of people were like, no, you shouldn't watch at 12, but I did because like I had the mentality where it's like it's not real, it's just a movie. But like a lot of people now don't have that. A lot of people like will take it into something else.
Yeah, I think that is important. Like, different kids can handle different things, and if they're exposed and told that this stuff isn't real and it's fine in this TV show, but maybe not in real life, then they'll have a harder resistance towards stuff like that when they're older.
For example, 13 Reasons Why completely explains that. Like, I'm a bit younger than most people, and I saw that, and I didn't get upset at all, honestly, and not, that's one of my favorite shows, and, it's, it is inappropriate, but I'm not allowed to watch Game of Thrones, and I don't want to watch Game of Thrones at all, honestly. And not hating on Game of Thrones. And it's just 13 Reasons Why is a weird kind of, just the stuff that happens, you would think that I would, when you're younger, you would get upset by it, but I didn't get upset by it. So when other people watch it and they say they're upset by it, I'm like, I don't say anything, because I don't want to start an argument, but I just didn't get upset by it.
13 Reasons Why seems like a show that's based around like what's happening now with a whole bunch of kids committing suicide, and it's essentially, I feel like that I haven't watched that show personally yet, but I feel like it might be like reasons why someone would do that, because a lot of kids don't have reasons, they just do it. Same with cutting their wrists, they just it just seems popular among their group of friends, or maybe they like the painting and it feels nice, but really, why though?
With that show, there's a lot of controversy. Like, after it came out, I remember, like, there being so much controversy on whether it was advertising suicide or explaining it. And, like, a lot of people were having difficulties, like, understanding what it was about, because I know that it wasn't advertising suicide. It was kind of, like, explaining that, like, even, like, little things can lead a person to do that. And, like, it's just how, like, this world has become really just, it can become intense, especially in school. So, like, I know parents, especially who, like, have kids who've watched it, like, or they watch it themselves, like, think that they're advertising suicide on a TV show. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think there's a trouble with like saying parents should guide their kids in certain ways, because I mean, as growing up unschooled, I think it's like it's a parent's job to make the child understand what a show is, because there are definitely kids who would watch Game of Thrones or 13 Reasons Why and have a very negative effect on them. There are also a bunch of adults that are feeling the same way. So I think it's really about who the person is, because I definitely know when I was 12, I was watching a bunch of shows and movies that people would say are too adult for me. And the sort of warnings of what is and isn't okay are kind of guidelines and not strictly rules. And I think we kind of see them that way. Like nudity, for one. Like, we see nudity as a very negative and like adult thing because of our growing up in our society. And I think the younger you are, the less kind of stigma there is on nudity, so you're less kind of shocked by it or uncomfortable by it.
That reminds me of something, like, because I was in Europe for a bit, and one thing I noticed, like, with nudity and cursing, it's very different there, because, like, how here, like, if someone curses on a TV show, they'll bleep it out usually. And if there's nudity, they don't usually show it on television shows. They usually, like, cut scenes to make it more television friendly. But when I was there, all of the scenes were, like, there was, like, live TV shows with people who were, like, completely naked and whatnot, and then cursing wouldn't be bleeped out. And it kind of, like, teaches, like, kids there that, like, it kind of becomes a natural thing after one point. So, like, it doesn't seem like such a wrong thing to them. Whereas, like, here we're based on the idea that we have to be kind of protected from seeing nudity and from hearing cursing for such a long time, when in fact that usually when you get protected by it, more kids tend to get more involved with it behind their parents' like knowledge.
No, I definitely get you there. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really like Game of Thrones, is because, I mean, other than the fact that it's a great TV show, they don't try to censor anything, which kind of bugs me about some TV shows, that it actually kind of takes away from the realism of it and adds to the suspension of disbelief, because it's just, they cut out things like that.
Yeah, I've never really understood the censorship system in America. I mean, you have like a movie like Hunger Games, it's PG-13, and there's a ton of blood in that show and violence and death, but, I mean, movie, but, you know, they say the F word a few times, and it's an R-rated movie. All right, on that note, well, this conversation has been really great so far, but I think we should head to break, so we're going to go to break. All right, everyone, bye.
Bye.
Fandom, at the very basic level, is one of the dominant modes of engagement online.
Fandom is something that has become really pervasive.
Whatever your interest is, you can probably find a community of people into that same thing.
We're in a culture that I read you, you read me, we're all in it together.
It's a smaller community, much more personalized.
If you want to be in fandom, fandom wants you.
Fandom is saying that I really like a much more active participation with my culture, that I don't just see a movie and walk away from it, but I want to discuss it afterwards. I want to write stories about it. I want to draw fan art. What we had is a kind of aberrational 100 years of mass media culture where the idea of how to enjoy stories has become really passive, and that fan culture and the internet is a return to the kind of previous culture that you saw going through the end of the 19th century, where people be told stories to each other because there was no mass media. Fans are drawn to texts and universes that are really complex. Creative worlds where you get a sense that what you saw was only the merest sliver of what was possible. And so one of the things that fans do is like to explore the cultural levels of the universe, adding different kinds of characters, more representative characters, by giving bigger roles to women, by creating different kinds of roles for queer people and racial minorities, for portraying disabled people. So all of these have been really important locuses for people to come together and to tell stories that express political values, social values, cultural values that are very different from what the mass market can offer. And so to self-identify as a fan is to say that you're interested in engaging culture in this really broad and rich way.
Bronies are male fans of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
Generally between the ages of 16 to 25.
And they fiercely love the show.
For a man in today's society to tell someone you're a fan of My Little Pony, a lot of times they might cock their head a little bit and be like, well, what's wrong with you? One of the most appealing things is how much it directly challenges our heteronormative expectations of what it means to be a man.
The bronies that I've encountered in real life have mostly been completely earnest, more than ready and willing to talk about their favorite episode, their favorite pony. They want a bro hoof and they want to welcome you to the herd.
Men traditionally have certain societal expectations, and really that comes down to a larger problem with homophobia.
Andrew WK's on your side, you're still masculine. I mean, who doesn't want to imagine a world with magic and happiness and awesome flying ponies?
We've got this very heavily gender segregated world we're living in America, and I think a lot of women are drawn to Transformers because we can step outside that. I write almost entirely in the Transformers fandom. Our canon has one gender. There is one female character. That makes everybody who's not female some sort of gendered other, and I like exploring the idea of what does it mean if you are free of those dynamics that we see so often, like heteronormative. This is sort of a chance to push back against that. You can play around with that idea of who is the receptive one, and is that really feminized in any way? Or is the one who's using the male analog part, is that the male? Is that the sort of top emotionally in the relationship? To use the idea of domination and control and sort of re-inscribe those tropes. It really allows for that kind of thing when we're taking, in a sense, gender norms that we are living with. In fandom, we're a community. We are no longer inscribed in that men do this and women do this. It's everybody is, in a sense, gender equal.
Homies arose out of the Aurora shooting tragedy. After it happened, on Tumblr, a group of people in their fanish engagement started to post strange Photoshop stuff that seemed to be in support of James Holmes, who was the shooter. Within a few hours of that, BuzzFeed posted a listicle about, look at all the stuff that the homies are doing. And then suddenly it became a story. Originally it was about 6 to 10 people, but the way that it was reported, it sounded like there were tens of thousands of people. The resulting media attention meant that more people were going to be brought to that space, and the media attention guaranteed that the homie phenomenon would turn into a trollish phenomenon. One of the great facilitators of community is having an outside, that you can only define a community in terms of borders. And so with homies, they were playing into that trope in an extreme way where only a handful of people would get it. I would argue a lot of trollish behavior is actually a kind of fandom. So where do we draw that line? How do we cordon off what's fanish and what's not? It's really important to consider that spectrum because it's what people do online.
Most corporations want to do a kind of branding. They don't want anybody to think about their product in a way that doesn't fit with their take on their product. The fan fiction that they are objecting to the most is the fan fiction that is most protected under law because it's the most transformative. It's a specific part of copyright, which basically says that even though somebody has the right to control their intellectual property, the rest of us have certain rights to respond to that. Whether it takes the original work and does something different, changes the meaning of it, changes the form of it, as opposed to simply copying. Most fanfic writers are not actually interested in going commercial. They want to share their work for pleasure with other fans, and that's the amazing thing that we want to protect. If you're a fan who's doing this just for love, and you get a cease and desist on Warner Brothers letterhead saying you are going to be sued, every violation has a $150,000 fine, you're like, oh my god, I have to take all my fanfiction off the internet, I have to erase my website, I have to vanish completely. Except of course, these stories that entertainment corporations tell enter our consciousness. You know, you can't say don't have Harry and Hermione get together. You can't tell people not to have that thought. That's why fan culture is important, to be able to nurture our creativity and share our stories and our art with other people. Why wouldn't we value that? Why wouldn't we let people have this kind of expression?
Fan culture really depends both on free speech and fair use. And free speech means sometimes taking speech that you don't like.
It challenges people's expectations of what they consider to be acceptable in society.
Here is this space where the rules are different. The world is very different than the world I live in, and there are set rules and there are set characters, and we relate to each other on a different level.
And it's something that someone can switch between different fandoms, different communities, different platforms.
It lets many more people have a voice, and it lets many people tell stories that would otherwise not get heard.
All right, welcome back. We have a new member. Say hi.
Hello. Hello. I missed half of this, but now that I'm finally on, heard you guys talking about some things like Game of Thrones and stuff. I've been watching Game of Thrones since it's actually been on, so that's pretty cool. And I watch it with my mom, and so yeah.
Through the computer, high
number one
five.
fandom?
Yes, I got someone to do it with me.
One of them. I love The Walking Dead, American Horror Story. As you can see, I'm wearing an American Horror Story shirt, and I have a million other fandoms I can't think of right now.
Same.
All right, so some ideas. In the break, we talked about some stuff we wanted to talk about, and stuff that came up was cosplay, a certain fandom that I can't seem to remember the name of, Yuri or something. So what would you guys like to start with?
How controversial do you want to get, quick?
Very controversial.
Okay, then Yaoi and Yuri. It's always super controversial. So
Yeah, we should say what it is first.
okay, so Yaoi and Yuri are a sort of pairing of couples that may or may not be canon, depending on the fandom. Yaoi is 2 guys and Yuri is 2 girls.
That's not technically, well, it's kind of true, but it's also, that's what it can be used for, but usually Yaoi and Yuri are a genre of manga that is, usually Yaoi or Yuri is a gay couple that's targeted at the opposite sex, and it's always porn. Yaoi means gay porn, Yuri means lesbian porn.
Amusingly, Yuri means lily in Japanese.
Yeah, it means that too.
Yeah, it really is pointed towards more of a more mature audience, which, is more towards, like, my thing.
I think...
manga, which is the comic books that comes with it. It's more of a Japanese fandom kind of genre.
Well, and I think it's pretty interesting because it's often very fetishized when it does not need to be. And just some stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think yaoi is usually targeted at teenage girls, actually. It's usually short stories that end up with 2 guys doing it.
All right. Well, this
Lovely.
is fascinating. No, seriously.
That's what it is.
So I think now we should talk about cosplaying, because seeing pictures of fandoms and, all those, pictures that circulate through Facebook and whatnot, all these pictures of these cosplayers. It's pretty incredible. So do any of you have personal experience cosplaying, and what's your opinion?
Do I?
Me.
I just
I do.
recently cosplayed for the first time. So, like, yeah. That somebody else can go talk first.
Alright.
I'm a part of a cosplaying group called the Cosplaying Dead, and we do like Walking Dead cosplays and meet up at the conventions and take like group photos together and stuff. And Lily is actually like a part of it and does it every once in a while at conventions with me. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I was planning on actually doing a pretty big cosplay soon, but I would not be able to do that. So I'll do a cosplay I've never done before, but I think will be noticeable because like everybody knows Carl from The Walking Dead. So
That's gonna be awesome.
yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, I do a lot of cosplay. A lot of it. I like to go to conventions. Specifically, I go to Fandom every year, and I really enjoy sewing a lot. Yeah, I started out with historical sewing, and it's kind of branched off a lot into cosplay, and so it's super fun.
That's awesome.
I know you cosplay, Danny.
I suck at sewing and stuff, but I cosplayed once.
Yeah, I suck at sewing as well. I usually like branch to Kate. I'm like, hey Kate, I have this to adjust. I have this to adjust. Mind if you help me?
Oh my god, last con I was like taking in our friend Shayla's sweater by hand. It was so funny. It's like the night before she had to wear like
I don't have a sewing friend. I need one, so I don't need to sew ever in my life. Yeah, I only cosplayed once, but I do draw a lot of fan art for my big fandom right now. I drew like 3 or 4 pictures just earlier today of these 2 characters from this one fandom, so I'm more into that. And you're dancing, so your turn to talk about it.
Danny, shall you show them the wall?
This is Kate's right here, but my wall right there is my fan art.
Nice. I don't have my sketchbook with me. I've just been drawing non-fandom related stuff.
Yeah, I'm also currently working on a project that's taking me like a month. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I cannot draw for that long.
I like writing fan fictions and stuff because I want to be an author when I'm older, so that lets me be creative with like writing stuff I already know, like Until Dawn the game or The Walking Dead or stuff like that, and just writing fan fictions because it's fun and I like writing stories and stuff like that.
I suck at writing, but Kate and my sibling writes fan fiction, so I've never read fan fiction before either, but I know a little bit about it because of them.
All right. I feel like we should, very briefly, I'm going to wrap around. We should define what cosplaying is. We started talking about it, but we didn't say what it is. But
it's like Halloween.
Yeah, it is like Halloween.
But
It is.
You're
Extremely
dressing
elaborate, expensive Halloween.
Yeah.
It's
Willow
just
has
actors dressing
experience
up
with
as
cosplaying.
a character from your choice of entertainment.
Yeah, and you can even cosplay something you just simply made up, and
Yeah.
it's a pretty great thing to do. I mean, I met Lily through that at conventions because you meet so many new people through it and just make so many new connections and learn so many more things about your fandom.
Like people, every time I go to a con. I don't know why, but I will always see the person that dresses up as Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead's cat. Like specifically his cat, and everything is like perfectly done. And I just don't understand, but you can do whatever you want with cosplay.
Willow actually has
It's like a second family to me.
Willow actually
Yeah,
has experience cosplaying.
I cosplayed a character from that D&D podcast I was talking about earlier, and I didn't think anybody would notice me, but I got noticed quite a bit, and it's like the best feeling in the world. It's amazing.
It is amazing when people like come up to you and ask for like pictures or something. It's just like a really good feeling.
Yeah, and also the character I was cosplaying is like a gay flamboyant character, and it's like I'm just so happy when people recognize me because it's like, oh, you're a person who's cool with this stuff.
It's like, oh, I didn't think anyone would care, and then it's like everyone does.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's like my favorite one. Sorry, I'm going into story mode now. My favorite time getting noticed at this con was I was sitting outside with my friend, and this guy who's like an older, just like normal looking white guy who doesn't seem like he'd be into this thing with a bunch of gay and trans characters in it. And he was just like, Taco? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yes. And then he walked away.
That's
like
amazing.
my favorite thing at con when someone recognizes you. Like my favorite character is Alan Walker from The Gray Man, which is what I mentioned earlier, the Kate and I's obsession. And I always cosplay as guys, even though I'm a girl, but I have this small build of the kind of guys that I cosplay. And it's just the best feeling when you're recognized, especially in a fandom like The Gray Man, which is very old, and the fandom's kind of died to a very small group of people. So when you actually meet somebody who recognizes that character, and it's like one of the best feelings. Really.
I really love the D Gray Man fandom because they're so nice. There's so few of us that we see random D Gray Man cosplayers around, and you can just walk up to them and be like best friends.
Yeah, like you can walk up to them and like hug them, like, hello, you are my person.
This is hi me.
It's
and we're
also
fandom is extremely like everybody's nice to each other and there's no hate.
Yeah.
Except for on Roland.
Yeah, another great thing is when you're cosplaying like the same character as someone else and you don't know them at all, but then there's like a moment you're like, we are the same.
We are one.
I've like probably went up to 1 million different people who were cosplaying the same thing as me and took like a picture with them, and then I was friends with them later at a different convention.
That's nice. What things have you guys cosplayed? I've only cosplayed Taco from the Adventure Zone. And that's it. So like tell me about your guys' cosplays.
My first cosplay was Padme from Star Wars, like the like 1, 2, and 3. And then it was, I think the year after that I did Harley Quinn. And then the year after that I did Maggie, and then I did Clementine from the Walking Dead game, and pretty much Walking Dead and DC stuff from that point on.
I've done a lot of cosplay. I've done Daenerys from Game of Thrones,
nice.
A book version and a movie-inspired version. I've done some D Gray Man cosplay, Ouran High School Host Club. I did Poison Ivy from the DC universe. I did her the new 52 outfit, if anyone's familiar with that. Oh God, what else? Danny?
Hatsune Miku.
Oh yeah, that one. That was a good one.
You've also done your book character from Throne of Glass.
Oh yeah, I did yeah. You're not supposed to tell people my shame fandom. One of them.
I'm trying to also think of what else you've done. I think we've done Black Butler.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that was so fun.
I've done Eric Cartman from South Park before.
Nice.
I was proud of.
That's amazing. I've mostly done Walking Dead cosplays, obviously, and then like one year, kind of a couple of years ago, I did Daenerys cosplay from Game of Thrones.
Nice.
That was pretty cool, and yeah.
Second through the computer, high five. Don't leave me hanging.
Hey, we've also done My Little Pony.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
Fruits
God. And Fruits Basket. Oh, that was the first one. My fake bangs were horrendous. It's a beautiful thing.
All right. So one thing I wanted to bring up, like I'm really enjoying where this is right now. So we talked a bit about fandom drama earlier. We kind of like touched on it here and there, but I wanted to wrap it back around to that because I feel like that is a large aspect of fandoms. And one incident that really sticks out in my head because I am on Tumblr a lot, so I saw this as it was all happening. So the Steven Universe fandom, which if you're on Tumblr, it has a reputation. Not a good one.
Oh boy.
So they have a reputation for being very extreme. But one incident that really sticks out in my head is, so one artist, so I'll also, one thing a lot of extreme like fandomers will do is they will be very harsh on artists. Like they will like criticize and censor their art. And this was an extreme case of it. So this artist drew one of the characters who is more heavy set.
I know the story.
Yeah.
I think I followed the artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they drew that character. It appeared to be thinner, and this person got an extreme amount of backlash, like unbelievable amount of backlash, death threats, etc., to the point in which they made a suicide attempt. That really happened. So that brings up, like, you know, does anyone else have or has observed crazy fandom drama?
I do. Did somebody else want to go first?
You can go. I'll go after
Okay. I'm like really big into this one fandom right now, the Adventure Zone, because I can like only handle one fandom at a time to ruin my life. So like, the Adventure Zone, the characters don't have a set look at all, but some people can get really vicious with drawing the characters differently. So my character's name is Taco, which is a Mexican food. And like this was a really big deal. So like he's played by a white guy, but because his name is of a Mexican food, a lot of people drew him as Latinx, which the creators were fine with and stuff. But in a graphic novel version that's coming out soon, he's blue, so they had to kind of like avoid it, and they had so much backlash on this, like a ton of backlash, because they were trying to avoid people thinking this was a racist thing, naming a Latinx character after a Mexican food, for people who like didn't know the podcast, just knew the book, because his name, this show wasn't supposed to be a big show, it was supposed to be a one-off thing, and Taco, the name was a joke. So like it's such a huge big deal, and a lot of people, not even just them, everyone who draws this character blue gets so much backlash. It's terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously? I mean, like, it's a D&D character. I mean, like, I have a friend who named his D&D character Brobot 5000 or something like that.
And he's an elf. It's not a stretch for him to be blue. Like, he should be blue or human colored. Green, maybe. Like, it's a normal thing for him to be blue.
That's crazy.
I've experienced the hate in my fandom that I'm in. I'm also in the Walking Dead fandom. I'm like in a multi-fandom, but one of the fandoms I'm in is the Walking Dead fandom. So just for fun, I figured why not draw a gender-bent Rick? And you would not believe the amount of hate that was drawn towards me because I drew Rick in a female way, and everybody said, well, that would mess up the complete storyline and that would screw everything up, and why would you even think of doing that? And it
Because
doesn't
gender bending is a thing.
Yeah, it's your opinion. You can do whatever
Yeah.
you want.
I don't like the word gender bend has some controversy because it's like apparently it has controversy anyway because someone said it had like to do with only there's two genders, but that doesn't really make sense.
Just say rule
But I
63.
yeah, I understand that type, but like gender bending a character in one part of fan art is like such not a big deal. Who cares?
Well, okay, if I realize that there's more than two genders, but gender bending has a much better ring to it than sex bending, so, which is the scientific term, so.
Yeah. And also, I think it was gender swapping, which the person was mad at, not gender bending.
Oh,
It's like,
okay.
There's swapping two things. Bending is a little different.
Gotcha.
So to kind of touch on this subject, and I heard you guys talking about Game of Thrones earlier. So like, since I've been watching Game of Thrones since I was younger, there's a lot of people who will be like, oh, you're that young and you're watching Game of Thrones, how dare you? And they'll kind of shove their opinion down your throat about it. And like, some people do that too with their own fandoms and kind of push whatever they like on you, and they'll like argue you on like ships and stuff. And I just think it's kind of weird because I think fandoms are about having your own opinion and liking your own stuff, and I don't get when people want to argue about it.
Yeah, and if you don't like a ship or a fandom, you can just say, not into that.
Yeah, you don't have
it's
to, like,
not too hard.
Against it.
I definitely get that. I never really understood why there had to be so much hate between fandoms. I mean, you like what you like, and if you like it, you can simply turn the other cheek and continue on with your own fandom. I mean, it doesn't
like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it doesn't really have to be blown out into all of this hate and, negativity, where we all love, different things, and I don't see why there has to be so much hate behind it and why people have to go so far as to make death threats over, something else that they didn't like.
We're all nerds here. It should be a safe place.
If you think about it, a fandom, if you use the word kingdom with it to think about it, a fandom is a bunch of people that are together that all agree that they like the same thing, and they're a bunch of fans in the same, well, let's just say kingdom, like fandom, they're all the same. But without, like, there's no one person, like, taking away the king and the queen part of everything. There's no one person that makes the rules, like, oh, if you're in this fandom, you can't like this person, or if you're in this fandom, you can't like this person. A fandom is supposed to be people that are all in the same fandom and are all liking the same thing, not hating on each other for no good reason.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's like Game of Thrones is actually a show I can watch and I feel like it's an escape, like the way video games are, something like that. And it kind of helps me escape my life experiences that are almost worse than the violence on that show because it's reality. So it's just weird when people hate on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama. Like the thing of like where you notice it a lot is this is just another example where there are extremists within it. Like there are people who take it very seriously. Like so there were the people that were complaining about the Steven Universe thing, but another example of like someone getting something with race or like I get body weight or something along the lines of that wrong. So the Overwatch fandom, because there are fandoms about video games.
Oh,
yeah. So Overwatch, I don't play Overwatch, but they frequently release like skin packs. And apparently one skin pack had one of the, characters of certain ethnicity a different shade. And it literally, like, these people were accusing the people who made Overwatch of racism. And there were like intricate Tumblr posts of people like comparing the different color palettes and then proving or disproving their racism. And it's like, seriously? It's stuff like that. And that's just one example. And that stuff happens within like that same thing of people taking the color of like the skin of a certain art and comparing it to like the source material. happens with artists as well, and artists will be just excoriated for just getting the skin tone slightly off, or maybe the person who is getting on them didn't understand lighting and just looked like their skin was lighter. It's like, you're whitewashing. That's
Yeah,
so happen all the time.
another thing about the Adventure Zone comic thing, the character who is blue and all the characters, they said specifically that those aren't the official designs still. It's still up to anyone, but people were still so mad. And they redesigned the characters from it, and they tried to be more inclusive, but they still got so much backlash when they were just trying their best. It made me so mad.
That's not right.
I'd like to start a conversation on like not hate within fandoms, but hate directed towards fandoms, but I don't know like how to start a conversation like that, because we all have fandoms that we've been in that we have received hate for. Like for me, it was the Brony fandom, but that was crazy being in that. Like, but looking back, you have to wonder. So with a fandom like that, the main reason people will justify their hatred towards that fandom is, oh, it's a show for kids. You're adultifying it. You're making porn of it. Like, that's wrong. That's morally wrong.
Well, I mean, morals are a cultural construct, really, if you think about it.
Exactly. Like, it's morals are very subjective, and that's a hard thing to justify, like the berating of another human being on. Especially in a situation like My Little Pony. There's just like there was this assumption that if you're in that, you're a creep and a pedophile, but reality was most weren't, and you find that in the situation with most fandoms. Like there's certain fandoms out there that get hated on because of the sexual aspect of it. Most people within those fandoms don't partake in the sexual aspect of it, and like, I guess another example of that would be like the furry fandom or something. But I don't want to go into that. That's a long conversation. So I don't know where to go with this conversation, except to say, has anyone else noticed extreme hate within the fandoms that they are in from outsiders?
Well, while you're on the subject, I used to be a furry, and I think they're coming back now. So, like, I think... if you don't want to go into that, we don't need to.
Well,
but...
I mean, never mind. I'm not.
Yeah, I used to be in it. I was like 14, 15. I just like drawing Sonic characters. I didn't want to see porn. They're fluffy. They're humans with cat ears. Like, so much hate for that though.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean,
some kind of hate thing I noticed was I like Twilight. And I also like different vampire movies and shows where it's like not the whole sparkling vampires thing. And a lot of people hate on the sparkling vampires thing and make a really big deal out of that and ignore the complete rest of the storyline to the show. Well,
yes.
And the series of movies.
Yes.
If I recall, didn't the author get the idea for the sparkling vampires in like a dream?
I
read that somewhere.
Yeah,
that would be something I should look into.
She actually, Faith gave me these like journal books things, and they say in the beginning, Twilight came to me from a dream, so now you can write all your stories in here. So she came up with Twilight in a dream, and actually I just found it out, but 50 Shades of Grey originally was supposed to be a Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah, I know that the author of 50 Shades of Grey was really big into writing Twilight fan fiction. And I think that while we're on this subject, we've talked a lot about the hate in fandoms. We haven't talked a lot about the good things, though, which there are certainly a lot of. For one, there's one of you mentioned that you liked writing fan fictions and wanted to be an author.
Me.
Yeah, and that's really a beautiful thing. You know, fandoms, there is a lot of hate, but there's a lot of hate in any community, really. And that's really what a fandom is it's a community where people can come together and just share what they love and be inspired and just have free reign over their art. And it's a shame that there is so much hate, but there's good things too.
The good thing about the fandom is you can find so many people that you can be friends with. Like, I found some of my best friends in like fandoms, because there are some really nice people, and when you find nice people in fandoms, they're really nice people. But when you find like hate people, you find hate people.
It's like totally, it's polar opposite. It's one or the other you're going to find.
There's no Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, it really does go both ways. There is a lot of good in it, and that is the meeting the good people that are within the community and are within your fandom. It's bonding with other people and making friends and inspiring each other with, your writing or, your art, or, just sharing the love of this one thing that, or maybe multiple things that, you all enjoy together. And, a lot of people, they attach to things, like that's what a fandom is, either it's getting away from something or, helping your anxiety, and this person, like this one character helps you move through anxiety and stuff like that. So it just, you find other people who also have those characters and have the same reasons for liking that character and build friendships off of it.
Yeah, something I've noticed is like because of Netflix, there's been a lot of new generations of younger kids just finding out about new shows and new fandoms and things like that. And it's great.
I love watching that, actually, like children, getting more into that kind of stuff and like watching them grow within the fandoms and getting accustomed to new things. And I actually like love watching people get interested in something and completely just geek out about what they love.
Little Addison and Teen Wolf when she first started shipping. It's a beautiful thing.
And so many kids make like the ship edits and stuff, so that's just amazing to watch.
Okay, so there's a little note down here saying, like, asking, can you explain what it means to be in a fandom? And in my opinion, that is, I kind of touched on this earlier. I mean, that's really subjective. I mean, everyone partakes in a fandom to a different degree. Some people get really in a fandom and that means cosplaying and writing and reading fanfics and art and stuff. And then some just watch material. So
I think I would define being in a fandom as the point where you really start to care about the characters and the fandom on a higher level than just a casual fan. Like, in a weird way, they start to become like pseudo people. It's kind of interesting.
It's like when you start consuming or contributing to the fandom itself, like to fan fiction, fan art, cosplay, and stuff like that. I think that's like a major part of fandom, is going past the canon stuff and on towards the fan stuff, if that makes sense.
Like, I'll try this again without making it, but I'll try this now. The difference between, like, you can be it's the difference where you just play, like if you play a game and you're like, oh, this is cool, or if you make edits of the game and watch YouTubers play the game, or have like merchandise or like shirts of the game and stuff like that. That's like being part of like a fandom versus being like, oh, this is, cool. Kind of cool.
When you squee when a new season comes out.
Yeah.
There's a very specific sound.
Yeah, there is a specific sound. I think it's more also, building a community with people you didn't know, and it's sharing the love of something, and it is contributing to it, with your fan art and your fan fiction and your writing and editings, and you find your clique. You find people who like the same things, and the community just grows. For me, what being in fandom is closure. Being able to be comfortable surrounded by a bunch of people who like the same things as I do, do the same fan arts, do the same fan fictions, and talk about it, and fangirl, fanboy about it, make squeeze, I think that's what it mostly is. It's being comforted about what you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be two different ways where if you ask someone what's your fandom, people can take it different ways. Someone could be like, oh, I like this and that, and then another person could be like, I make edits of this and I'm part of this community. It could be perceived in different ways, but I think being an actual part of a fandom is when you kind of get a little bit more into it than just like, oh yeah, I like that show.
It's like when you really, really like that show.
Yeah.
That is a good point. I think this goes back to what does it mean to be in a fandom or being like I guess not obsessed, but like I guess like the sports thing. Like, are you in a fandom for sports? I guess it's not technically called fandom, but it's called a community.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a fandom is, though. Like, that's what it harkens back to, like, the Dom from a kingdom. I remember somebody mentioned that a kingdom's sort of a community. We're not really a democracy either, though. We're not a kingdom. We're not a democracy.
We're a community.
It's like a commune. A weeb commune.
See, the thing that people don't get, when they think, when people think fandoms, the first thing that when I told my cousin that I was in a fandom, the first thing that came to our mind was nerd, which I feel like is an often stereotype for people that like stuff like Harry Potter, Doctor Who. Some people think the stereotype for a nerd is in Doctor Who or stuff like that.
That was something I kind of wanted to ask you guys. Like, what do you guys think of the nerd definition to the people who go to the conventions? I don't know if any of you have ever seen Ted 2, but there's a scene in that where these two guys who are big sports fans kind of guys go into the New York Comic Con just to go and beat up the nerds and make fun of people, and it's just a really horrible thing that I don't think is greatly.
Yeah, I didn't watch that movie, and that sounds terrible. But my phone is propped up on 3 D&D books, so I'm a nerd.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about it other than the fact that it's just rude. I mean, it's not a nice thing to say. I mean,
yeah.
And what's what's your basis of hate towards these people? Like, oh my God, they watch a show or read a book. That's so awful. I don't understand what's the hate. I don't understand.
New York Comic Con actually has this new thing where you have to do a fan verification and check in with your social security stuff and all that, and they search you, and they have a big sign that says cosplay is not consent for harassment. It's crazy. They've had to resort to all that.
The con I went to had the cosplay is not consent words, but that was pretty much it, I think. That sounds crazy. Mine's called Anna Maritimes because it's in the Maritimes and it's hella small though.
Yeah, I think they mostly did it for the bigger conventions like New York and San Diego Comic-Con.
I people stereotype people that go to cons, people that go to conventions at all as either nerds or weird or just plain sometimes you don't even have to go to a convention and cosplay. You can just go just to
enjoy
try
it.
something cool or something, or just have fun. Because from when I was in kindergarten up to when I was in 3rd grade, all I did was go to Comic-Cons. That's like pretty much all I did.
Yeah, and something else with the Comic-Con thing for signing up for tickets, you have to list what your fandoms are, like what you actually like.
That's gonna be a long list.
That would be a really long list for me.
That'll go on forever.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that things like this really have such a negative impact for other people who kind of don't understand it. I've heard a lot of people just thinking, oh, this is just a phase. They're gonna get over it. They're cosplaying and spending all this money going to con, and I never really liked that it was taken in such a negative aspect. If you're interested in something, I don't see why there's the need to call it a phase or
Yeah, I hate that term.
I don't know why, but you saying that makes me think it's not a phase, Mom.
Exactly what I think. But yeah, it's a nice highlight. It adds some interesting things in your life. You meet such interesting people, and you learn so much. Whether it's sewing or it's just a lot of parents and other people just don't understand it, and I think there should be a lot better of an explanation for that, instead of just saying it's a phase or kind of shutting it down, thinking this is horrible, they're obsessed, it's unhealthy, like it's not.
Well,
So.
And I'm just going to take this back to the sports conversation we were having in the first segment, that I really agree with Danielle, and it just really hurts that if somebody was obsessed on the same level as, say, like a super anime nerd and otaku, if they were obsessed on the same level with like football or soccer, that would not be considered an issue at all. It would be, oh, they're really into sports. Instead of, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We need to send them to rehab. They need therapy.
Like, I do softball, and I like Harry Potter and that stuff, and I do cosplays for Harry Potter and all that stuff. And people don't even think about the fact people don't treat like people in my school or anybody. They don't treat me like, oh yeah, you're a jock, or oh yeah, you are just a person, but you like sports and you like that. No, oh yeah, you're a nerd. And you happen to like one sport. Good for you.
It's not enough to peel off the label.
Sorry.
Oh, wait.
I have a huge problem with stereotypes and labels, is because people shouldn't take nerd as such a bad thing. And it's seen as a bad thing in school, and I dislike it because nerd isn't a bad thing. Just because, and it's really good, and you guys should ask yourself this question: what's the difference between nerd and geek?
I ask how much of a difference that question a lot. My sort of definition, I've given this a lot of thought, so thank you for asking. Glad you asked. I really consider that nerd is more school-oriented, whereas geek is more fandom or fan-oriented. Being both, I learned pretty young to embrace the terms.
Yeah, I think of nerd being a more scholarly aspect. It's not a bad thing to hold knowledge. It's not bad to be smart. And I think that I don't enjoy that negativity of, oh, you're a nerd. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. And
there's nothing wrong with liking school.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking school and learning. And I think that's the difference between nerd and geek, is because geek is when you're really interested in something, and you love it so much that you want to talk about it and express about it, and you want to learn about that in a non, scholarly aspect. And geek or nerd is more of, kind of school related, and I think that's what the difference is. And for me, it doesn't really make sense when people make fun of somebody for having that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, it's like I don't walk around saying, "Oh, you're a jock." Like, why give that label? You like whatever you like.
And the sad thing about that is if you did walk around like, you're a jock, that wouldn't be considered negative. They'd be like, thank you. Like, no, that's not a compliment necessarily.
Because they would take it as a compliment. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you, I'm a jock. That's great."
And it makes you rethink. Maybe we should all take being weird or being a nerd as a compliment. If everyone else is going to take being a jock or being popular as a compliment, instead of seeing as being popular means people are literally in fear of you, because that's what it usually means.
I think recently, especially with superheroes, the word nerd and geek has sort of become a hipster cool in a way. It's like starting to turn, I think. It's like back when being a geeky nerd was just playing D&D in your dad's basement or something. It was like the worst thing that could happen to you, and now like Marvel's like one of the hugest like movies things ever every year. It's definitely changing.
Never be ashamed about playing D&D in your dad's basement. Never.
No.
Yeah, I mean, being a nerd and a geek today, I mean, it's much easier than it used to be. I think for the most part, it's pretty accepted. All right, so I've been told that we need to start wrapping up. So I think we should do some closing thoughts on the fandom, and then we should say our goodbyes. So closing thoughts on my personal closing thoughts on fandoms. It's a really, it's a large topic with a lot of nuances, but all in all, fandoms are cool. So what does everyone else think?
Yeah, what I just said was my closing thought.
All right.
Yeah, I'd have to say just love whatever you love, enjoy your fandom, and I mean, in the end, I'd rather be called nerd or geek any day before I was called basic.
Yeah.
I honestly, being part of a fandom is something that you're a part of a community that people all think the same thing, whether you argue or something, you all, in the end, you all like the same thing. And the stereotype part is that when people call you anything, whether it's something you don't like or something, well, if it's something you don't like, just brush it off. It's their opinion. It's not the whole world's opinion.
Yeah.
And if it was...
Yeah, all I can really say is, be yourself, and don't let people get you down on, just because they didn't like it. It's not, your fandom might not be everybody else's thing, and I think it's good to keep an open mind about, other fandoms and, be more, open to other ideas and be more open towards, other people's feelings about that. Don't hold like a negative thought for that fandom.
I think fangirling with Danielle is one of the best things that have ever happened to me, so...
All I can really say is being a part of a fandom is a great thing. Enjoy it. Don't let people judge you for it or hate on you for it. And if someone else has a fandom, then that's great too. You don't have to brush your fandom in their face or anything. Just let people have whatever fandoms they want.
Yeah.
It's like fandoms and those communities can change your life and make it's great because you have a second family.
Okay, does anyone else have any closing thoughts? Willow, Shelby?
My closing thoughts are, don't take the being called a nerd such a bad thing. Take it as a compliment. And generally love fandoms. If you have opinions on fandoms, express your opinions. Just love the fandoms for what they are.
Yeah, it's a safe space to be you. So
yeah.
Express your opinion, just don't do it in a negative way that could hurt someone else. You don't want to be hurt from someone if you don't want to be hurt, don't hurt someone else.
Okay, this has been really great, and that's a wrap. All right, have a nice day, everyone. This has been Youth on Subjects of the World, Fandom Culture. See you later.
Bye.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.